What is for you culture of solidarity in these times, and how can we produce it? I think this is purely political question. It is a question of what is relevant to our societies and communities where we live. How do we actually want to live? What is the minimum of life that we are accepted for everyone that lives in the community? And since we are talking about these things in Corona time, it is amazing to see what kind of retrograde political decisions have been taken. Something that turned our society in a global society in a very bodily, material sense, created very local and national politics. Suddenly, we have re-establishment of borders, talking about European Union, borders among countries. Suddenly we have national, local, some kind of nearly feudal political arrangement where bodies are not allowed to leave their place and not get in touch with the other. And here one has to be precise. It is not about rejecting and denying pandemic situation and danger that we are facing, but it is about learning how to behave in those circumstances, and that would be one of the primary way how to actually be solidary, how to be together in extreme situations or the situations that are presented as extreme. However, I think here we should also say that this is an amazing opportunity to say no to old normality. What knowledge we produce in culture and art now, how we should produce and distribute the knowledge. I think knowledge that is produced in art and culture is so much distributed in other fields of life that in a way sounds blasphemic still to say that what is the value of art and what is the value of culture, not to talk about the discreditation of artists still being called parasites, lazy, and so on. The society profits enormously from the very simple fact that you can look at one and the same thing in a way you never wanted to look at it, in a way you were never aware that you can actually look at it, in a way that basically makes you behaving and operating in a different way than you used to. So I don't think we have to do a special effort to claim the value of art and culture. It is always one and the same question: how to produce something relevant for society. And this, of course, is a difficult question, and usually it results either in art that is on the first moment dividing society, but on the second level it actually brings it together by the fact that it moves things that have been established earlier in society. What we learned from the crisis: can we develop different post-crisis modes and conditions of art and cultural production which will allow basic sustainability and reduce the precarious position of cultural workers and artists? Well, certainly we learned an enormous value of public care system, being it health care for older people, or general care for those who need help. We learned that neoliberal capitalism, who killed welfare state, that we can also call well-care state, should arrive to its end. It is the system that is dangerous for life of people. And in that sense, this is again an enormous possibility, an enormous chance to change the world as we know it, as has been established with this brutal neoliberal. Thus, COVID-19 crisis brings forward the idea of social equality, social states, and maybe universal basic income. How that can be reflected in culture and arts. Yeah, all these questions about equality are brought forward. As Madonna would claim, we are all equal in front of coronavirus. I would say we are as equal as we are in front of law. Yeah. If you have a good and just legal system, you are equal in front of law. But we don't have it, and we don't have it for two reasons. First of all, because some people can afford expensive lawyers and be more equal in front of the law than those who cannot. And the other thing, we always forget that law is established to protect, at the first place, those who are at power. And only later they protect citizens from the violence of state. And what is happening now, we live in a kind of semi or full or unexpressed but actual state of emergency, where we are very poorly protected as citizens in relation to the state. Now, how can this be performed within context of arts and culture, all these questions of equality? Robert Thaler, Austrian philosopher, once stated that artists should be paid only when they don't work. How to actually, the big question has always been how to affirm way of working in art, how to admit that there are possible different way of living and working, which are so strongly connected with especially a radical way of art making. Here, I think we should affirm the idea of universal basic income as a measure related to what I said at the beginning. Establish something that we can call a definition of life that we can call a decent life of the person in 21st century. What political and policy approaches you would foresee for future in the field you work, or how it should be changed in future? For example, what theater or contemporary performing arts field have learned from these times, and what political and policy approaches should be developed for its change, or how theater should change in future. Theater, especially when we talk about public institutions, is organized as a state in a very archaic and hierarchical way. And it has been challenged and questioned in last 3 decades or 4 decades with independent groups and NGOs that appeared as a kind of parallel or system next to the system of public institutions. And I think both ways of productions, public institutions and NGOs, did exhaust themselves. At the first place, because there's no dynamics that would make some kind of propulsivity and mutual transformations of both sides. In that sense, I think we should think about another way of making and producing theater and art in general.